Part 1. The Hook. The Saturday air in Oak Creek Preserve was thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant, happy shrieks of children at the community pool. It was the kind of manufactured suburban tranquility that Anna and her husband, Tom, had sunk their life savings into in their own backyard. A smaller, more intimate version of that tranquility was unfolding. Their 7-year-old, Lily, was pushing her 4-year-old brother, Jake. On the swing set they had just finished building, their laughter a bright, melodic counterpoint to the sizzle of burgers on the grill where Tom stood, spatula in hand. Anna watched them from the newly finished patio, a cup of iced tea sweating in her hand, feeling a profound, almost fragile sense of contentment. This was it. This was the life they had worked for: a safe, quiet street, a yard big enough for a swing set, and the freedom to watch their children grow. The illusion shattered not with a sound, but with a shadow. Two figures stood at the edge of their property line, just beyond the new white privacy fence. One was a young man, Mark, a recent college graduate who had nervously volunteered for the Architectural Control Committee, clutching a clipboard to his chest like a shield. The other was Karen Thompson, president of the Oak Creek Preserve Homeowners Association. Karen wore her authority like a well-tailored blazer, crisp, severe, and utterly humorless. Her silver blonde hair was cut into a helmet of geometric precision, and her gaze swept across their yard with the dispassionate scrutiny of a building inspector condemning a property. She did not look at the laughing children or the idyllic family scene. She looked at the fence. "Good morning, Anna," Karen said, her voice carrying across the lawn with a politeness that was sharper than any insult. Anna felt a familiar tightening in her chest, the same she felt every time she saw Karen's pristine sedan cruising slowly down their street. She forced a calm, neighborly smile. "Karen. Mark. Everything okay?" Mark shuffled his feet, his eyes darting from his clipboard to the ground, avoiding contact. Karen, however, met Anna's gaze directly. She took a deliberate step forward, her sensible walking shoes stopping inches from the manicured edge of Anna's lawn. She pointed a perfectly manicured finger toward the back corner of the fence. "We were just conducting a routine community walkthrough," Karen began. The "we" clearly meaning I, with Mark as a reluctant accessory. "And I couldn't help but notice your new fence installation. It's very prominent." Tom had turned off the grill, the sizzling now replaced by a tense silence. He wiped his hands on a towel and walked over to stand beside Anna, his presence a quiet wall of support. "We got the ACC approval last month. Karen followed the material and height guidelines to the letter." "Of course you did," Karen said, a thin smile gracing her lips. It did not reach her eyes. "It's not the guidelines I'm concerned with. It's the placement. It seems to be impinging on the view corridor easement." Anna's mind went blank. View corridor easement. They had a survey from when they bought the house. The property pins were clearly marked. Tom had been meticulous, running the string line a good 6 inches inside the pins just to be safe. "I'm not sure what you mean," Anna said, her voice steady. "The fence is well within our property line." Karen tilted her head, her smile unwavering. "The property line and the common area easements are not always the same thing, dear. It's a common mistake for new homeowners." Her gaze flickered past Anna, landing on the swing set where Lily and Jake had fallen silent. Watching the adults, "We just want to ensure everything is in its proper place, to maintain the community's aesthetic harmony for everyone." The subtext was clear. "Your harmony is disrupting mine." "Well, we have the survey from our closing," Tom said, his tone firm but respectful. "I can assure you, it's correctly placed." I'm sure you believe that. Karen replied smoothly. She turned to Mark, who flinched as if suddenly remembered he was there. Mark, make a note. Please. 124. Willow Creek Lane. Potential encroachment on the Section 4 common area easement. We'll need to consult the official plat map. She then turned her smile back on Anna and Tom. It was a weapon. You'll probably receive a courtesy notice in a few days. Just as a formality. Have a lovely weekend. With a final, lingering look at the fence, she turned and walked away, Mark trailing in her wake like a pilot fish. The silence they left behind was heavier than the summer air. The sound of the children's laughter was gone, replaced by a low, simmering dread. Anna looked at the fence, then at her husband, and knew that their perfect suburban peace had just been declared a war zone. Part 2. The Setup. The move to Oak Creek Preserve had been a calculated risk, a leveraging of every penny of their savings and a significant portion of their future. Anna, a freelance graphic designer who worked from a sunlit office over their garage, and Tom, a self-employed general contractor, had craved the stability the community promised. It wasn't just the pristine lawns and matching mailboxes. It was the reputation of Northwood Elementary, the bike paths that snaked through protected wetlands, and the palpable sense of safety that seemed to permeate the air. They weren't just buying a house. They were investing in an idyllic childhood for Lily and Jake. For the first year, it had been exactly that. They'd hosted backyard barbecues, joined the community pool, and carved pumpkins on their porch for the annual Halloween parade. They were good neighbors. They mowed their lawn on Thursdays, brought their trash cans in promptly, and submitted the proper architectural request forms for everything, including the celebratory flagpole Tom installed after his father, a veteran, passed away. Their file of HOA-related paperwork was thick and meticulously organized by Anna. That evening, after the children were asleep, she pulled out the heavy binder labeled House, Closing Docs. She flipped past the mortgage agreement and the title insurance, her fingers finally landing on the thickest document of all, the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions for Oak Creek Preserve, the CC&Rs. Her eyes scanned the table of contents, and she felt a small jolt. There, on page 47, was Article 8, Easements. She turned to the section, her eyes tracing the dense, legalistic prose. And then she saw it, a faint, spidery pen mark, a bracket in faded blue ink left by the previous owner, around a single subsection. 8.4.2. Structures on Easements. No permanent or temporary structures, including but not limited to fences, sheds, patios, or playground equipment, may be erected, installed, or maintained upon any common area easement as designated in the official plat map of the Oak Creek Preserve community, recorded in the County of Sterling. Book of Maps, 112, page 34. A chill ran down her spine. The previous owner had marked it. This had been an issue before. She cross-referenced it with their closing survey. The survey was a simple line drawing, showing their lot boundaries with neat, precise angles. It showed a utility easement running along the front of the property, but nothing was marked in the back. There was no mention of a view corridor. "What is a view corridor anyway?" she asked Tom, who was staring grimly at his own copy of the survey. "We don't have a view of anything but the Hendersons' back deck." "It's HOA speak," Tom muttered. "It can mean anything they want it to mean. A sliver of green space between houses, an access path for landscaping crews, or just a tool for a petty tyrant to make people miserable." The encounter replayed in Anna's mind the condescending tone, the dismissive smile. This felt different from the usual HOA nitpicking. It felt personal. A few days later, Anna was retrieving the mail when she saw her neighbor, Sarah, wrestling with a large box from a home delivery service. Anna walked over to help. Sarah was a decade-long resident of Oak Creek, a wry, pragmatic nurse who had seen it all. "Thanks, Anna," Sarah panted, heaving the box onto her porch. "Gardening tools. My futile, annual attempt to have a yard that doesn't draw the ire of Her Majesty." She nodded her head in the general direction of Karen's house. "We had a visit from her on Saturday," Anna said, trying to sound casual, "about the new fence." Sarah's expression soured. "Ah, the fence. It looks beautiful. By the way, don't let her get to you. That's her sport." She lowered her voice. "Remember the Millers, 2 streets over. They put up a basketball hoop. A perfectly nice, HOA-approved basketball hoop. But Karen decided its position detracted from the streetscape's visual continuity. She hounded them for 6 months with violation notices, until they finally gave up and took it down. Their son was heartbroken." She mentioned something about a view corridor easement. Anna said. Sarah snorted. "That's her favorite. It's a phantom rule she invokes whenever she doesn't like something. Most people just fold. It's easier than fighting City Hall. You know." The casual confirmation of Karen's history of selective enforcement solidified Anna's unease into a cold certainty. This wasn't about a rule. It was about power. As she walked back to her house, she felt the walls of her suburban paradise closing in. They hadn't just invested their savings here. They had invested their peace of mind. And Karen Thompson, it seemed, was determined to foreclose on it. Part 3. The Inciting Incident. The following Saturday, exactly 1 week after the confrontation in the yard, the official salvo was fired. It didn't come as an email or a note tucked into their door. It arrived with the grim finality of a court summons, delivered by the mail carrier who had to ring the doorbell to get a signature. "Certified mail." The crisp, green and white envelope felt unnaturally sharp against Anna's thumb. Her name and address were typed with sterile precision beneath the return address, Oak Creek Preserve HOA. CEO Paramount Community Management. She signed the mail carrier's electronic pad, her hand strangely unsteady. She closed the door, the click of the lock echoing in the quiet house. For a moment, she just stood there in the entryway, staring at the envelope. The sound of her children's laughter from the family room, where they were watching cartoons, seemed to fade into a dull, distant hum. With a deep breath, she tore it open. The letterhead was impersonal, the font a bland, corporate Times New Roman, but the words themselves were daggers. Formal notice of violation. Date: October 12, 2023. Property: 124 Willow Creek Lane. Owner: Anna and Thomas Miller. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Miller, this letter serves as a formal notice of a violation of the covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC&Rs of the Oak Creek Preserve Homeowners Association. An inspection conducted on October 5, 2023, by the Architectural Control Committee ACC has identified a violation at the above-referenced property. The nature of the violation is as follows. Violation: unauthorized encroachment on common area easement. Cited CC&R Article 8.4.2 Structures on Easements. Specifically, the newly constructed privacy fence along the rear property line has been determined to encroach approximately 18 inches onto the designated view corridor common area easement. As per the governing documents, no private structures of any kind may be erected upon said easements. You are hereby directed to cure this violation within 14 days from the date of this notice. Curing the violation requires the complete removal of the encroaching section of the fence from the common area easement. Failure to comply by October 26, 2023, will result in the levying of monetary fines against your account, beginning at a rate of $100 per day, until the violation is resolved, as stipulated in the association's enforcement policies. Further non-compliance may lead to additional actions, including the placement of a lien on your property. A photograph of the violation is enclosed for your reference. Sincerely, the Oak Creek Preserve HOA Board of Directors. Stapled to the back was a grainy, black and white photograph taken from the street, showing their fence with a stark black arrow pointing to the back corner. It looked accusatory, criminal. Anna read the letter a second, then a third time. The black ink seeming to blur. 18 inches. An area of land smaller than a doormat. But on this piece of paper, it was a chasm threatening to swallow their home. The sterile, procedural language was more chilling than any angry shouting. It was the language of absolute, unassailable authority. The mention of fines, and worse, a lien, made her stomach clench. A lien could jeopardize their mortgage, their credit, their entire financial stability. Tom came in from the garage, wiping grease from his hands with a rag. He saw the letter, saw the look on her face, and his easy smile vanished. He took the paper from her and read it, his jaw tightening with each line. 14 days, he said, his voice a low growl. They give you 14 days to rip out a fence that took a month to plan and build. He looked out the window at the solid, handsome fence he had built with his own 2 hands. It wasn't just wood and nails. It was a symbol of the privacy and security they had sought for their family. "This is insane," Anna whispered, the shock finally giving way to a hot surge of anger. "This is a declaration of war over 1.5 feet of grass." Tom crumpled the letter slightly in his fist before forcing his hand open and smoothing it out on the counter. "No," he said, his eyes meeting hers. "It's not about the grass. It's about her. And we are not going to let her win." The certified letter was no longer just a notice. It was a challenge, and in the quiet of their sun-filled kitchen, with the fate of their home and their peace hanging in the balance, Anna and Tom Miller accepted it. Part 4. The first obstacle. Anna's first instinct was to fight bureaucracy with bureaucracy. She was a designer. She believed in logic, order, and clear communication. Surely, a reasonable, evidence-based appeal would resolve this misunderstanding. This was, after all, a neighborhood run by their peers, not an unfeeling corporation. She spent the next 2 days crafting a careful, professional response. She scanned their original property survey at high resolution, highlighting the clearly marked boundary pins. She took a dozen new photographs of the fence from every conceivable angle, using a tape measure in each shot to demonstrate that the entire structure was built on their side of the pins. She even included a satellite image from the county website with their property lines overlaid, showing no recorded easement in that area. She compiled everything into a polite, meticulously organized email addressed to the official board of directors email account, which she knew was managed by Paramount, the third-party management company. Subject: Appeal. Regarding violation notice. 124 Willow Creek Lane. Date: October 15th, 2023. Dear Board of Directors, we are writing in response to the notice of violation we received via certified mail on October 12th, 2023. Tracking UR 7019 1120 0001 4567 89001 concerning our recently installed fence. We believe this notice was issued in error As per the attached documents, we have compelling evidence that our fence is located entirely within our private property boundaries and does not encroach on any common area. Attached for your review, please find 1. A high-resolution scan of the official property survey conducted at the time of our closing. 2. A series of time-stamped photographs clearly showing the fence's placement relative to the legally established property markers. 3. An annotated satellite image from the Sterling County GIS portal. We respectfully request that the board review this evidence and rescind the violation notice. We followed the ACC approval process in good faith and took great care during construction to respect all property lines. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Anna and Thomas Miller, 124 Willow Creek Lane. She hit send with a sense of cautious optimism. The evidence was irrefutable. Any reasonable person would look at the survey, look at the photos, and dismiss the matter. For 3 days, there was only silence. The online portal for their HOA account, however, was updated with chilling efficiency. A new line item appeared under Fines and Assessments. 10/27/2023, Fine Non-Compliance. CC&R. Paragraph 8.4.2. Day 1, 100 Po, Yidichi. The sight of it made Anna's blood run cold. They were fining them before even responding to their appeal. The bureaucratic machine was already grinding forward, indifferent to their evidence. The reply finally came on the 4th day. It was from the generic Oak Creek Preserve HOA address. But the tone, the precise and condescending choice of words, was unmistakably Karen's. Subject: Reappeal regarding violation. Notice: 124 Willow Creek Lane. Date: October 19th, 2023. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Miller, the board is in receipt of your email dated October 15th, 2023. The evidence you provided has been reviewed. However, your private property survey does not supersede the community's official plat map, which is the governing document for all common area easements within Oak Creek Preserve, as stated in the CC&Rs. The plat map is the final authority on such matters. The board's decision stands. The violation is considered valid, and the 14-day compliance period has expired. The daily fine of $100 a year has been initiated as of October 27th and will continue to accrue until the fence is removed from the easement. Your appeal is denied. Please ensure the violation is cured promptly to avoid further action. Sincerely, the Oak Creek Preserve, HOA Board of Directors. Anna stared at the screen, her heart pounding with a mixture of disbelief and fury. Denied. The word was a slap in the face. They hadn't refuted her evidence. They had simply dismissed it by invoking a document they hadn't seen the official plat map. It was a textbook case of moving the goalposts. She's hiding behind procedure, Tom said, reading the email over her shoulder. His voice was dangerously quiet. She knows we don't have this official plat map, so she can claim it says whatever she wants. The impersonal bureaucratic wall they had run into was not indifferent at all. It was being operated by a single, malicious hand. Anna's polite, logical appeal had been met with a curt, absolute denial. They were trapped in a Kafkaesque nightmare where the rules were whatever Karen said they were, and the evidence didn't matter. The daily fines were no longer a threat. They were a reality. The path of reason had led to a dead end. Anna finally understood. This was not a dispute to be resolved. It was a fight to be won. Part 5. The Rising Action. The curt denial was the turning point. The cautious optimism Anna had clung to evaporated, replaced by a cold, clear-eyed resolve. This was no longer about a misunderstanding. It was a personal attack, and she would not allow her family to be bullied into submission. Her first call was to David, not Tom's brother-in-law, but his actual brother. David Miller was a real estate attorney, a man whose personality was as dry and precise as the legal documents he spent his days dissecting. He listened patiently as Anna recounted every detail. From Karen's first visit to the board's dismissive email, he made soft humming sounds of acknowledgement. And, when she was finished, there was a long pause. "Okay," David said finally, his voice devoid of panic. "Stop emailing them. From now on, every communication is via certified mail. You are now building a case, and you need a flawless paper trail." "But they denied our appeal," Anna said, the frustration rising in her voice. "They say their plat map trumps our survey." "Of course they do," David said. "That's their shield. So, your job is to get a copy of that shield and find the crack in it. Here's what you're going to do. First, tomorrow morning, you are going to hire the best licensed surveyor in the county. Not a quick mortgage survey, but a full boundary and improvement survey with a signed, sealed report. It'll cost you, but it's an investment. Tell them specifically you need them to identify any and all recorded easements on your property." "Okay," Anna said, already grabbing a notepad. "Second," David continued, "you are going to the Sterling County Recorder of Deeds office. In person. You need to request a copy of the official plat map for the Oak Creek Preserve development, specifically referencing the book and page number from your CC&Rs, Book of Maps, 112, page 34. Get a certified copy. That's a legal document they can't dismiss." "And third," he said, his voice sharpening slightly, "you are going to file a formal records request with the HOA Management Company. The state property code gives you the right to inspect the association's books and records. You're not going to ask for everything. Be specific. You want the unredacted board meeting minutes for the past 12 months. They'll likely have a summary online. But you want the full, official minutes. They might fight you on it, but they are legally obligated to provide them." He paused. "Anna, Karen's power comes from the belief that nobody reads the fine print. You are going to read every single line. You're not looking for a loophole. You're looking for the truth she's twisting." The call left Anna feeling empowered, armed with a clear plan of attack. The next day, she and Tom drove to the Sterling County Government Complex, a drab, imposing building of 1970s concrete architecture. The Recorder of Deeds office was in the basement, a hushed, fluorescent-lit room that smelled of old paper and dust. After filling out a request form, a clerk returned with a massive, heavy ledger book. He opened it to page 34 of Map Book 112. There it was, the master plan for Oak Creek Preserve, a sprawling web of lines and numbers drawn in faded ink. Anna leaned over the page, her finger tracing the lines of their street. Willow Creek Lane. She found their lot. 124. And there, running along the back of their property and the 3 adjacent lots, was a faint, dotted line. The legend in the corner of the map identified it 10 wide PVCE. "What does PVCE stand for?" she asked the clerk. He squinted at it. "Public View Corridor Easement. Pretty common in planned developments. Means that 10-foot strip has to be kept clear of obstructions. It belongs to the property owners, but the HOA has the right to enforce the easement." Anna's heart sank. It was real. Karen hadn't invented it. But then she looked closer, her finger tracing the dotted line further down. It continued across the back of their neighbor's lot. Then the next. And then It clipped the very back corner of the fourth lot on the block, lot Darsha 1118. She pulled out her phone and brought up the community map. Lot Darsha 118 belonged to Karen Thompson. Meanwhile, back at home, Anna logged into the HOA portal and navigated to the documents section, as David predicted. The board meeting minutes were available, but they were heavily sanitized. She found a meeting summary from 6 months prior, dated April 18th. One line item caught her eye. New business item, 4B ACC matter, lot Dauber 82. Motion to approve variance request for easement encroachment. Motion passed 4-1. Details redacted for homeowner privacy. Redacted. A variance had been granted to someone else for the exact same issue. Her suspicion hardened into a certainty. This wasn't just selective enforcement. It was documented, provable hypocrisy. She immediately drafted a formal records request, citing the relevant state code, demanding the unredacted version of those minutes, and sent it to Paramount Management via certified mail. The fight was no longer just about her fence. It was about exposing a system of control built on secrets and double standards. Anna was no longer just a homeowner. She was an investigator, and she was starting to uncover the rot beneath the pristine green lawns of Oak Creek Preserve. Part 6. The Midpoint Twist. Two events happened on the same Tuesday afternoon. A 1-2 punch that simultaneously validated Anna's investigation and escalated Karen's attack to a terrifying new level. The first was the arrival of Mr. Davies, the licensed surveyor. He was a quiet, methodical man in his late 60s, with sun-crinkled eyes and hands stained with the earth of 1,000 properties. For 2 hours, he worked with quiet efficiency, setting up his theodolite, consulting his GPS-linked tablet, and driving small wooden stakes with bright orange flags into the ground. Anna watched from the kitchen window, her stomach in knots. Finally, he knocked on the door, holding a preliminary sketch. "Well, ma'am," he said, getting straight to the point. "The HOA is technically correct. The easement is real, and your fence encroaches on it. By my measurement, it's 19.5 inches at the corner, not 18. Anna's heart plunged. "So, it has to come down." Mr. Davies held up a hand. "Now, hold on. I said they were technically correct. But the thing about these old plat maps is, they're a bit of a blunt instrument." He pointed to his sketch. "This easement line. It's a straight line that starts way back at the main road. It runs across the back of 4 properties on this block yours. Your neighbor, Mr. Henderson's at 122, the Garcias at 120, and—" He paused, a slight twinkle in his eye as he tapped the 4th and final property on the sketch. It clips the back 10 feet of lot 118, right through a very elaborate rose garden. Anna stared at him, her mind racing. Mr. Henderson, the kind, elderly man on the board, and lot 118, Karen's house. Her rose garden is on the easement. "Clear as day," Mr. Davies confirmed. "Planted my final survey marker right in the middle of her prize-winning petunias. She wasn't too happy about it when she came out to ask what I was doing on her property." He gave a dry chuckle. The confirmation was a shot of adrenaline. The hypocrisy was real, tangible, and now marked with an orange flag in Karen's own backyard. This was the silver bullet she needed. She was still processing the profound implications of this discovery when the doorbell rang. It wasn't the mail carrier or a delivery driver. It was a woman in a conservative blue pantsuit, her expression a careful blend of empathy and professionalism. She held up an ID badge. "Good afternoon. My name is Diane Walsh. I'm with the Sterling County Division of Child and Family Services. May I come in?" The world tilted on its axis. Anna felt the blood drain from her face. CPS. She had read stories online, but it was a remote, abstract horror, something that happened to other people. Is everything all right? Anna managed, her voice a reedy whisper. Tom, hearing the exchange from the living room, was instantly at her side. Ms. Walsh's expression softened slightly. I'm sure it is. We received an anonymous report of a potential safety hazard concerning your children. It's my job to follow up on every report, no matter how minor it may seem. It's just routine. They let her in, their minds reeling. The house, usually a place of happy chaos, suddenly felt like a crime scene under scrutiny. Lily and Jake, who had been playing with Legos, fell silent, sensing the tension. Ms. Walsh was polite, but her eyes missed nothing. She explained the nature of the report. The caller expressed concern about an unsafe structure in the backyard. I believe they meant the swing set being located in close proximity to a disputed property boundary fence, which they claimed was unstable. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Disputed boundary fence. Unsafe structure. The words were chosen with malicious precision, twisting the civil HOA dispute into a false narrative of child endangerment. This was Karen's escalation. Unable to win quickly on the procedural front, she had launched a deeply personal, nuclear strike against the one thing Anna and Tom held most sacred: their family. Anna felt a wave of nausea, followed by a surge of pure, cold rage. Karen hadn't just attacked their home, she had attacked their parenthood. She had invited the state to stand in judgment of their ability to keep their own children safe, all over a few inches of grass and a personal vendetta. The stakes had just been raised from their finances to their very family. This was no longer about winning an argument. It was about survival. Part 7. The second obstacle. The hour that the CPS investigators spent in their home was the longest of Anna's life. While Tom calmly answered questions about the swing set's professional installation and the sturdiness of the fence, Anna focused on the children, playing a game of Go Fish with them at the kitchen table, forcing a placid smile onto her face while her insides churned with a toxic brew of fear and fury. Ms. Walsh was thorough. She inspected the swing set, noting the deep-set concrete footings. She examined the fence, which Tom demonstrated was rock solid. She spoke gently with Lily, asking her if she liked her yard and felt safe playing in it. Through it all, Anna and Tom maintained a veneer of calm cooperation, knowing that any display of anger or panic would only be misinterpreted. Finally, Ms. Walsh closed her notebook. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," she said, her professional tone softening with a hint of sympathy. "I see 2 happy, healthy children and a home that is clearly safe and loving. The structures in your yard are well maintained. Frankly, this report seems entirely without merit. I'll be closing the case as unfounded. I'm sorry for the intrusion." The relief was so immense it was dizzying, but as they closed the door behind her, the emotional dam broke. Anna sank onto a kitchen chair, burying her face in her hands, the tremors she'd been suppressing finally shaking her body. Tom wrapped his arms around her. The violation lingered, the feeling of being judged as parents, of having their sanctuary invaded because of a neighbor's spite. The victory felt hollow, because they knew the war was far from over. The very next day, another certified letter arrived. The daily fine notices had been coming regularly, which they had been ignoring on David's advice, but this one was thicker, more ominous. It was a notice of hearing. They were being formally summoned to appear before the board of directors in 2 weeks' time to present their case regarding the violation. The letter stated that if the board upheld the violation at the hearing, the fines, which would by then total over $2,000, would be due immediately. And stapled to the back was a second document, a chilling escalation of the financial threat. Notice of intent to file a lien. It was a formal declaration that if the fines were not paid following the hearing, the board had voted to authorize their attorney to place a lien against 124 Willow Creek Lane. Their home, their largest asset, was now officially on the line. The pressure was immense, a crushing weight of financial, emotional, and reputational strain. The whispers had already started. Sarah had called to tell Anna that Karen was subtly spreading a rumor at the community pool about the Millers being uncooperative and under investigation. A vile insinuation that played on the CPS visit. Their reputation was being poisoned. That night, sleep offered no escape for Anna. She lay awake, the what-ifs chasing each other in an endless, terrifying loop. What if they lose the hearing? What if the lien goes on their house? What if Karen's campaign of harassment never ends? She slipped out of bed and went to her office, turning on her desk lamp. On one side of her desk was the stack of HOA notices, a monument to Karen's aggression. On the other was her growing evidence file, the certified mail receipts, the high-resolution copy of the official plat map, the surveyor's sealed report, and the email confirming that her request for the unredacted minutes had been received and was being processed. Staring at the two piles, Anna felt the fear begin to recede, replaced once again by that cold, sharp-edged resolve. Karen thought she was an emotional, overwhelmed mother who would crumble under pressure. She had miscalculated. She had mistaken Anna's aversion to conflict for weakness. Karen was a project manager. She dealt in processes, documents, and rules. Well, Anna was a designer. She dealt in structure, evidence, and presentation. And she was about to design Karen Thompson's downfall, piece by meticulous piece. The hearing wasn't going to be a hearing. It was going to be a reckoning. And it would not be held behind closed doors. David had discovered that the date of their scheduled hearing coincided with the HOA's mandatory annual meeting, a public forum, the perfect stage. Part 8. The Climax. The community clubhouse buzzed with the low-grade chatter of 40 or so homeowners, most of whom looked either bored or obligated to be there. The air was stuffy, smelling of stale coffee and industrial-grade carpet cleaner. At the front of the room, behind a long folding table, sat the 5 members of the board of directors. Karen was in the center, a picture of poised authority, flanked by 2 allies, a nervous-looking treasurer, and, at the far end, Mr. Henderson, who looked deeply uncomfortable. Anna and Tom sat in the second row. Tom's hand rested on her knee, a silent, steadying presence. In Anna's lap was a slim black binder, its contents tabbed with colored markers, the product of 2 weeks of sleepless nights and relentless preparation. After a tedious review of the budget and the landscaping committee's report on perennial selection, Karen tapped her microphone. We will now move to the homeowner public forum. As a reminder, each speaker is allotted 5 minutes to address the board. Please keep your comments concise. A large digital clock was projected onto the screen beside her, its red numbers glowing. First on the list is Anna Miller, from 124 Willow Creek Lane. A murmur rippled through the room. This was the uncooperative homeowner Karen had been whispering about. Anna walked to the podium at the front, her heart hammering against her ribs. But her hands were steady as she opened her binder. She placed a USB drive into the laptop connected to the projector. "Good evening," she began, her voice clear and even. Projecting to the back of the room, she looked directly at the homeowners, not just the board. "My name is Anna Miller. My family and I are here tonight because our home, our finances, and our reputation have been systematically targeted by this board's president, Karen Thompson. A gasp went through the crowd. Karen's face hardened, her polite mask cracking for the first time. She gripped her pen. For the past 6 weeks, Anna continued, we have been accused of an easement encroachment. We have been fined thousands of dollars, threatened with a lien on our home, and subjected to a malicious and unfounded CPS report based on this dispute. The timer on the screen clicked to 4:30. I'm not here to ask for your sympathy. I'm here to present facts. The first fact is the easement itself. Click. The first slide appeared on the screen. It was the high-resolution, certified copy of the official Sterling County plat map. Anna used a laser pointer to trace the faint, dotted line. This is the public view corridor easement, as recorded in Map Book 112. The board has repeatedly cited this document as its ultimate authority. As you can see, the line is straight. It does not curve or deviate. It is an impartial, geometric fact. Click. The next slide was the sealed report from the licensed surveyor, showing their property overlaid with the easement line. The 19.5-inch encroachment was clearly marked in red. The second fact is that our fence does indeed encroach on this easement. We have never disputed this fact once we saw the official map. We dispute the board's enforcement of the rule. The timer hit. 3:15. Karen was starting to look impatient, whispering to the board member next to her. She thought Anna was confessing. Because, Anna said, her voice dropping slightly, drawing the audience in. The easement doesn't stop at our property line. She clicked again. Click. The third slide was an aerial photograph of the neighborhood. The surveyor's easement line was now a stark, red line drawn across the entire block. It sliced through the backyards of 4 properties. This easement also crosses the properties at 122 and 120 Willow Creek Lane. And, most interestingly, it crosses the back corner of 118 Willow Creek Lane. She paused for effect. A few homeowners who knew the neighborhood map began to whisper. Click. The fourth slide silenced the room. It was a crystal clear, time-stamped photograph taken by the surveyor. It showed a bright orange survey flag planted firmly in the soil. And behind it, in full, vibrant bloom, was Karen Thompson's prize-winning rose garden. A collective gasp swept the room. All eyes shot from the screen to Karen, whose face had gone chalk white. The mask was gone, replaced by a flash of pure, undisguised panic. The clock read, 1:50. Anna pressed her advantage. For 6 weeks, we have been the sole target of this enforcement action. Why I believe the answer lies in the board's own records. Click. The fifth slide was a scanned document. It was the unredacted minutes from the April 18th board meeting, which Anna had finally received from Paramount Management 2 days ago after her formal request. This is a page from the minutes of the April 18th board meeting. I'd like to draw your attention to item 4B. She used the laser pointer to highlight the text. Motion to approve variance request for easement encroachment for a patio extension at lot Ducker 82, owned by Mr. and Mrs. Albright. The Albrights, I should note, are personal friends of Mrs. Thompson. Now, let's look at the vote. She highlighted the tally. Ayes Thompson, Gates, Ramirez, Chen, nays Henderson. The motion passed 4-1. The room was dead silent. Mr. Henderson stared down at the table, his face grim. This board, led by President Thompson, granted a variance for the exact same violation to a personal friend, while pursuing punitive, costly, and emotionally damaging action against my family. This is not enforcement. It is a targeted, selective, and arbitrary abuse of power. The digital clock glowed. Joas by. My time is up, Anna said, her voice ringing with quiet finality. I trust the homeowners of this community will draw their own conclusions. The clock buzzed. Anna closed her binder, took her USB drive, and walked back to her seat with unshakable poise. The stunned silence held for a beat, then two, before it was broken. Part 9. The Falling Action. The silence that followed Anna's presentation was profound and absolute. It was the sound of 40 people recalibrating their entire understanding of the neighborhood matriarch. Every eye in the room was fixed on Karen Thompson, who sat frozen, her face a mask of disbelief and rage. The authority she had cultivated for years had been dismantled in 4 minutes and 55 seconds with a laser pointer and a handful of public records. It was Mr. Henderson who broke the spell, the elderly board member, who had been a quiet, often passive vote for years. Pushed his chair back and stood up slowly. He did not look at Karen. He looked at the assembled homeowners. I have served on this board for 8 years, he began, his voice raspy but firm. I have always operated under the assumption that we were acting in good faith, for the benefit of the entire community. It is clear to me now, he said, finally, turning his gaze to Karen, that this has not always been the case. He cleared his throat. I would like to make a motion. The board's treasurer, a man who had always been squarely in Karen's camp, stammered. This is not on the agenda. Bill. I am making a motion, Mr. Henderson repeated, his voice gaining strength. I move to immediately and retroactively dismiss any and all violations and fines levied against property, 124 Willow Creek Lane, concerning the easement encroachment. Furthermore, I move that the board be required to commission a full, independent, third-party audit of all ACC enforcement actions, variance requests, and vendor contracts for the past 2 years of Mrs. Thompson's presidency. A wave of murmurs broke out. An audit. The word hung in the air, laden with implications. Is there a second? Mr. Henderson asked, his eyes sweeping over the other board members. After a tense moment, the 4th board member, a young mother who had often seemed intimidated by Karen, raised a tentative hand. I second the motion. Karen finally found her voice. This is an outrageous personal attack, she hissed. This meeting is adjourned. You can't adjourn a meeting to escape a seconded motion. Karen, Mr. Henderson said calmly, it requires a vote. All in favor. He raised his hand high. The young mother raised hers. The treasurer, seeing the tide turn with breathtaking speed, reluctantly raised his. 3 hands were in the air. All opposed. Karen's hand shot up, a lone, defiant gesture. The motion passes. 3-1, Mr. Henderson announced, a quiet gavel of finality in his voice. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Homeowners began talking at once, many approaching Anna and Tom to offer words of support, their expressions a mixture of shock and admiration. At the front table, the other board members were physically shifting their chairs away from Karen, creating a visible gap around her. She sat alone, staring straight ahead, her face ashen. Her power hadn't just evaporated, it had been publicly and procedurally annihilated. As people filed out, Mr. Henderson approached Anna and Tom. Mrs. Miller, he said, extending a hand. That was the bravest, most well-prepared presentation I have ever seen in this room. I am deeply sorry for my own complicity in this matter. I should have paid closer attention." Anna shook his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson, for doing the right thing." He nodded, his eyes troubled. "That surveyor, he put a flag on my property as well, didn't he?" This was the moment Anna had prepared for. Her secondary moral dilemma. She could have exposed him during her speech to prove the board's hypocrisy. But she had made a strategic choice. "Yes," she said quietly, "he did." Which is why this was never about punishing violators. It's about finding a fair solution for everyone. His shoulders slumped with relief and a newfound respect. He saw that her goal wasn't destruction, but restoration. As Anna and Tom walked out of the clubhouse and into the cool night air, they weren't just a family who had saved their fence. They were the architects of a revolution in Oak Creek Preserve. Part 10. The Resolution and Final Surprise. The third-party audit moved with surprising speed, fueled by a community suddenly galvanized into demanding transparency. The auditors delved into 2 years of contracts, emails, and financial records that Karen had long considered her private fiefdom. The final report, presented 3 weeks later at an emergency board meeting, was more damning than anyone could have imagined. It revealed that the landscaping company Karen had repeatedly used for corrective actions, like the Miller's potential fence removal, was owned by her son. Worse still, financial records showed a clear pattern of kickbacks for every fence removal or forced landscaping job ordered by the HOA. A consulting fee was paid directly to a shell corporation registered in Karen's name. The revelation of her personal vendetta was the final, critical piece of the puzzle. The auditors cross-referenced the dates and discovered that Karen's campaign against Anna and Tom had begun just weeks after Tom's construction company had significantly underbid her son's company for a lucrative commercial development project downtown. The HOA violation wasn't just selective enforcement or an abuse of power. It was a bitter, misdirected, and ultimately criminal act of financial retribution. Faced with irrefutable evidence of fraud and a recall petition that had gathered signatures from over half the community, Karen Thompson resigned in disgrace before the board could formally vote to remove her. The threat of legal action from the HOA and several other affected families hung over her departure. She sold her house within a month, her prized rose garden dug up and carted away by the new owners. The lien against the Miller's property was expunged from the records as if it had never existed. The fines were erased. Their victory was total and absolute. At the next official HOA meeting, with Mr. Henderson serving as the interim president, the community was ready for change. Anna, now seen as a quiet but formidable leader, took the floor during the public forum once again. But this time, she didn't come with accusations. She came with a solution. "The easement issue affects 4 homes on our block, including Mr. Henderson's," she announced, her voice calm and constructive. "It's an artifact of an old map that doesn't reflect the way we live in our homes today. Continuing to enforce it punitively serves no one." She proposed a global variance, a formal, legally recorded resolution that would grant an exception for the existing structures on all 4 affected properties, protecting them from any future selective enforcement. She had already spoken to the Garcias and had Mr. Henderson's blessing. The motion acknowledged the letter of the law while prioritizing the spirit of community. It passed unanimously, to a round of applause. In the following months, under a newly elected board, a transparent oversight committee was established to review all ACC decisions, ensuring that the rules were applied fairly and consistently to everyone. The culture of fear Karen had cultivated was replaced by one of collaboration and common sense. One sunny Saturday afternoon, almost a year after their ordeal began. Anna stood on her patio, watching Lily and Jake swing higher and higher on their swing set. Tom was at the grill, the familiar, comforting sizzle of burgers filling the air. Their fence stood strong and secure, a quiet monument to their fight. Sarah waved from her yard next door, and Mr. Henderson gave a friendly nod as he walked by with his grandson. The peace they felt was no longer fragile. It was earned, forged in the fires of bureaucratic warfare. It was stronger and more resilient than the manufactured tranquility they had first bought into. They had faced down a bully, not with anger and shouting, but with diligence, integrity, and the quiet courage to stand up for their family. In saving their own home, they had inadvertently healed their community. The laughter of their children filled the backyard, a sound no longer threatened by shadows at the property line, but a pure, joyful expression of a peace that was truly, finally, their own. The end.